This week, I have a question for you to ponder upon. When I say you, I mean you and I, because we're in this together, really. And I want you to deeply reflect on and be true to yourself in answering this question. And the question goes thus: are you a helper or a hinderer? Now, this is particularly important for couples to ponder upon honestly and truthfully because of the very nature of the marriage institution. But really and truly, you can examine yourself across all your relationships. We need to constantly be examining ourselves and the role that we play and how we show up in all of the relationships that we are in. And so to help you answer this question, I have 5 traits of a helper and also 5 traits of a hinderer. What does a helper look like? Who is a helper? What does a hinderer look like? Who is a hinderer? I'm going to be sharing 5 traits. I would say that these traits are not exhaustive, but if you just even ponder on these 5 traits on both sides, you will be able to do this reflection exercise, review and assess yourself, and in the areas where you need to adjust how you show up, I believe that this is a great starting point. So let's get into it. Now, starting with a helper. Who is a helper? First and foremost, I would say that a helper is somebody that is present and available. You can't help when you're not available. Neither can you help when you're not present. So to help, you need to be present, you need to be available. And so the question to you is, in your relationships with your children, with your parents, with your significant other, your husband, your wife, in the communities that you are in, are you present and are you available? Think about it. The second trait I want to ask about or share for examination purposes is a helper is somebody that is humble. Because the very nature of helping requires a measure of humility. If you feel too big, you will not put yourself up to help. So to be a helper, humility is required. The question is, are you humble? Am I humble? Number 3, a helper is somebody that is willing to serve. Willing to serve. Marriage is a relationship of service. Most of the relationships that we find ourselves in, we'll find out that there's an element of us having to serve at one point in time or the other, at some point, at some stage. And so a helper is willing to serve. They never think of themselves too big to serve. They're available, they're willing. Are you willing to serve? Number 4, I think that should be number 4. Yes, this should be number 4, yes. Is a helper is somebody that is loyal and a supporter. So I've packed 2 things in one here. You're loyal to your relationships and you are very supportive in the relationships that you find yourself in. So you show up as a supporter and you show up as a loyalist. And the last but not the least is a helper is somebody that is willing to sacrifice. By the very nature of the marriage relationship, sacrifices are necessary to be made. If you are a helper, you will not find it hard to sacrifice for your spouse or your significant other. You will not find it hard to sacrifice for your parents. You will not find it hard to sacrifice for your children. You will not find it hard to sacrifice even in the workplace or whatever other communities that you find yourself in. So these are just 5 traits for the purpose of time. But I said the list is not exhaustive. You can do your own research, your own work, and dig up more of these traits. Now, moving on to who a hinderer is or what a hinderer looks like. Now, I'm going to share another 5 traits on this end. Now, the first one I want to talk about is control. A hinderer is somebody that knowingly or unknowingly, is fixated on controlling. Controlling the dynamic, controlling the relationship, controlling people, controlling opinions, controlling how people function. A hinderer is fixated on control. Number 2, a hinderer is somebody that obstructs growth. Obstructs growth because, control and obstruction of growth kind of go hand in hand. How do they obstruct growth? When you're with a hinderer, it's almost like you can't be yourself, you can't flourish, you have to stay in one spot, and it's a spot that is comfortable to them. So a hinderer obstructs your moving forward, a hinderer obstructs your growing, a hinderer obstructs your getting better. Don't forget that this could sometimes be unknowingly done. So they are not like intentionally saying, no, you can't grow, no, you can't. Sometimes they are not even aware. And that's why reflection is important. Number 3, a hinderer is somebody that is arrogant and proud. I talked about the helper being humble. With the hinderer, there's a lot of pride, there's a lot of arrogance. And for you to be able to actually find out whether you are proud and arrogant, sometimes doing a strengths and weakness assessment, asking people. We're afraid to ask people at times, but honestly, sometimes ask your inner circle and ask them to be truthful, to give you a feedback about how they see you and how you show up. So a hinderer is somebody that is arrogant and proud. Now, number 4, I believe I should be on number 4. A hinderer is somebody that neglects and abandons. You can't be in any relationship and you abandon the people in that you're in your relationship with. You are hindering the flourishing of that relationship. So you abandon, you're not there physically, you're not there emotionally, you're not there spiritually, you're not there mentally, you've just checked out. How on earth will that relationship flourish? So a hinderer is somebody that abandons and neglects. And the last but not the least is a hinderer is somebody that also obstructs differing viewpoints. So particularly for husband and wife dynamics now, and even for your children, the fact that we don't see things the same way doesn't mean that we can't get along. I don't always have to see the world the way you see it for us to be able to get along. I don't always have to share your perspective for us to be able to get along. And honestly, there's beauty in diversity in opinions, diversity in mindset, diversity in an expression. There is beauty in diversity. And so a hinderer is somebody that obstructs, stands in the way of people giving their different opinions. Have you been in those meetings in particular where maybe you're working with a boss who wants you to always agree with what they say, and because you're not agreeing, they pack you to one side? That is a hinderer for you. So these are just 5 traits on both sides, and I know that it's not that much, but time will not permit me to share more than this. And so the question is, are you a helper or a hinderer? How do you show up in your relationships? What experience of you do people have? What experience of you is your spouse having? It's so critically important for us to take time and ask ourselves that question from time to time. What experience of you, what experience of me are my children having? As I'm asking this question of myself, I need to actually go and ask my children as well. Are you a helper or a hinderer? Go this week with this thought, with this reflection question, do the exercise, and where you need to make change, I encourage you to make the needed changes. As always, my name is Taye Aluko, and thank you for listening. Share this message